Hey, fellow superhero cinephiles. Did you know that almost 30% of adults say they haven't read a book in the past year? The primary reason why is a lack of time. Well, Audible's here to help with the gift of found time. Thanks to Audible, you can listen to audiobooks like Marvel Comics, The Untold Story, or Slugfest, inside the epic 50-year battle between Marvel and DC. Read up on the history of superheroes in comics and movies with Grant Morrison's Super Gods. You can also check out Vanguard, my original superhero novel series, or try The Vril Agenda or The Adventures of Fortune McCall, both of which were written by our dearly departed host emeritus, Derek Ferguson. Whatever you're looking for, Audible has thousands of titles that you can consume while commuting, exercising, cooking, or just relaxing at home. And not only audiobooks, an Audible membership also gives you access to tons of content like podcasts, theatrical performances, and exclusive Audible originals that you won't find anywhere else. To give you a taste of what you can get, Audible has partnered with this show to provide listeners with a free 30-day trial. All you have to do is go to audibletrial.com/supercinemapod, and with your free trial, you get 1 free audiobook and 2 free Audible originals. In fact, you get to keep those titles even if you cancel before the trial is over. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to audibletrial.com/supercinemapod and start your free trial today.
Where's the Joker?
Who knows? Making ha-ha with Harley Quinn. I don't know, honest. I never went back after he muscled in. I don't want nothing to do with that clown.
That's enough. I think you got your answer. I heard you were crazy. I didn't think you were stupid. Bruce Wayne. You peaked. I won't have vigilantism in my town.
You'll be rid of me as soon as I find the Joker.
That may not be soon enough.
It doesn't take much, does it? The Joker has 20 pounds more where this came from. Thought you might like to know.
Welcome to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. I am your host, Perry Constantine, and I'm here today with another new guest host, a longtime fan of the show, longtime listener, and that's Mike Blanchard. Mike, how you doing today?
Hello, I am doing as well as can be expected.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather vax on than vax off.
Yeah, we don't have that option here yet. They're doing a very slow rollout out here in Japan.
Oh, jeez.
Mm-hmm.
You would think it would be fast rollout everywhere, but anyway.
You would think, but the way it works in the ruling Japanese government is you fail up. So,
well, we did that for the past 4 years, so
yeah.
Here's hoping we can.
Anyway, first thing I want to do is have you tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Oh Lord, about me. Well, I have been podcasting as of December 8th or 12th or whatever date it'll be later this year. It'll be podcasting 13 years. My podcasting network celebrates its 12th anniversary on June 1st. That is the GeekCast Radio Network of podcasts. So I've been doing that it's probably the longest time that I've been doing anything. Mm-hmm. Born and raised in Massachusetts. No, it does not matter if it's Tom Brady at QB, New England Patriots, it's fly or die, pretty much. It doesn't matter who is in the position. It's the team that matters. Mm-hmm. Same thing with the Red Sox and the Celtics and the Bruins and all that. I lived in Kentucky for 25 years and lived other places and things like that. Just found out 2 years ago that apparently I have, that I have enlarged ventricles in my brain.
Oh.
And that I had hydrocephalus.
Mm-hmm.
Hydrocephalus is quite literally a week after I had my brain surgery 2 years ago is what killed Tim Conway.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, how did they not catch this before? How did nobody in my entire life know about this? My mom had passed away about 6 years ago. And I'd been asking her my whole adult life, what's going on? Why, what is all this? And she never could give me any answers and anything like that. But it took one day, and I always go by the recommended what you're supposed to take. But if I'm in as much pain as I was in then, I took one day, and I took throughout a 12, almost 18-hour day, I took 15 ibuprofen because I could not get the pain to go away. The next day I went in for a CAT scan. They're like, yep, you need to have a drain put in your head so we can drain all this stuff out of you.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, okay, good. They put the drain in. It's been fine for 2 years. About month and a half ago, 2 months ago, the headache started up again, and I'm like, you gotta go in for a CAT scan to make sure. And now it's just, I gotta get the records from the other states because I had the surgery in Illinois. We now live in Washington State. So it sucks that the medical community state doesn't talk to others, one state doesn't talk to other states and all that. So now I'm just waiting on the comparisons to see if it's gotten worse or better. And for a while there, I thought it was better because I hadn't had any kind of headaches or anything like that for the longest time since the original brain drain 2 years ago. So yeah, that's me. I don't want to say average geek, but 80s, 90s, Transformers, He-Man, Thundercats, Batman the Animated Series, Justice League, Superman, all that stuff.
So speaking of which, what do you think of the new Masters of the Universe revival images that have been coming out?
Until I see, the toys look really cool. I won't collect any of them because I'm just not, the only collection I have right now is Funko. But the toys look great. What we've seen of whichever cartoons they are, it looks interesting. But until Netflix says, hey, this is coming July, whatever the date, I think it's supposed to be July 23rd. Until I see an actual trailer, I'm very skeptical that Kevin Smith is involved because Kevin Smith is, Kevin Smith. He is Mr. 37. And it just, I don't know, it just feels like they are doing so much at one time. Like they have all their eggs in all these baskets. And I know the saying is don't always have your eggs in one basket, but you can also spread yourself thin to a point where you're like, hey, there's nothing here left. So I'm like, come on, Mattel, slow down just a little bit.
Okay. All right. Now there's some other news that you brought up to me right before we started recording. So since you brought it up, do you want to go ahead and tell people about this?
I am looking, absolutely. I am looking at the at World's Finest online. The World's Finest. I've known these people for years now. One of the guys that runs that is named James Harvey. And it's 2 articles. One is My Adventures with Superman animated series gets 2-season order by Cartoon Network and HBO Max. Warner Media has announced that the new animated series My Adventures with Superman has been given a 2-season commitment from HBO Max and Cartoon Network. The new animated series, a premiere date is expected to be announced soon. Sam Register serves as executive producer. Superman will be voiced by Jack Quaid. It looks like it's gonna be a fun thing for your kids to get into, for people that were like when Superman the Animated Series came out when did that come out? 97, 90, no, 96.
Yeah,
96.
mid-90s.
It was 1996 with Superman the Animated. I was 16 at the time, and I wasn't really paying any attention to it, but I was 12 when BTAS came out, and I was like, ooh, what's this? My then stepmother at the time saw Batman punch a guy, and she's like, yeah, you're not watching that. I'm like, oh, you bitch. But eventually I came to my senses and watched the DCAU on my own. I'm not sure what to think about this one because it looks like it's aimed more to recapture what Superman the Animated Series was supposed to capture with us when we were
Mhm.
kids, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's got it seems, yeah, it's I mean, all we have is the description
Yeah.
and the one image of Lois, Clark, and Jimmy. And I like it. I like that they do these things that are more for kids, especially after the long long period when we only had, the Dark Superman who breaks people's necks. So I love the idea, and especially, now that I've got a daughter, I'm looking forward to watching some of the stuff with her. So I think it's great. It looks really interesting from what we see here. Jack Quaid, who's on The Boys, he's really good on that show. So I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes.
Yeah, me too. It's going to be interesting. And again, people our age will always say, why does it have to be another origin story? Well, it's not for us. It's
Yeah.
for the kids that were our age now, kind of thing. Like I just kind of scanned part of the plot description about how it's, Clark Kent, shaping his secret heroic identity of Superman, and how Lois is this up and coming investigative reporter. So, okay, it's going to be an origin. Fine.
It also seems like it's going to have more involvement of Lois and Jimmy than Superman the Animated Series had, which I think is also an interesting thing to add in too.
Yep. And then the other piece of news coming from World's Finest again, Batman Caped Crusader animated series ordered by Cartoon Network and HBO Max. The biggest news coming out of this is Bruce Timm returns along with Matt Reeves and Mr. Felicity himself, the exploding Mission Impossible bomb maker, J.J. Abrams.
The whole Bruce Timm's involvement after the Killing Joke, that's the one that makes me a little bit nervous, actually. Just because I don't know what he was thinking with that, and I just hope Batgirl's not in it because he's got some weird obsession with Batman and Batgirl.
Yeah. I know everyone is all up in arms about JJ because everybody's like, oh my God, he ruined Star Trek. Oh my God, he ruined Star Wars. Oh my God, he's gonna... Again, this isn't for us. I mean, this could be for us. I don't know. I don't see an actual... See, the thing about Batman Caped Crusader, when I was doing research on this before we started the record, the first thing that popped up was a 1988 video game. Like I literally had to do deep dive of Batman Caped Crusader 2021 news or whatever it was that I searched to even find this, even though I already had this article pulled up. But like, there's no plot description here. There's not even a voice cast announced yet. I'm hoping against hope it's Conroy, but if it isn't,
I really doubt it.
I don't know. I mean, maybe this is the original... I mean, this is more of the original design that Bruce Timm had in mind, or somebody else had in mind at the time when BTAS was happening 30 years ago. Because I remember when they did the 75th anniversary.
Yeah,
short.
It's from like his first appearance, Cowl.
Yeah, and I think that looks cool. I think that looks great. I think it's interesting. I think it's going to be fun. I don't know. Again, until I see a trailer or until I see an interview with whomever it is, whether it's Bruce Timm, whether it's Matt Reeves, whether it's J.J. Abrams, until I hear them talk about it and say what their vision of it is, I'm reserving judgment. Right now, based on the information, based on the little poster that we have here, it looks cool, but who knows?
Yeah. Speaking of Abrams, he actually made an announcement in a recent interview saying that even though he's got this deal with Warner Brothers and DC, he doesn't plan to do any directing of projects based on existing IPs in the near future, which I think is a good thing. I like it better that he's just kind of like acting in a producer capacity and just finding the right talent for these things. Like, I mean, he's got Ta-Nehisi Coates doing Superman. He's got Bruce Timm back on Batman, which, we'll see how that goes. But I think that's, and I think he's responsible for finding, what's his name for Last Jedi. So I'm all for him taking more of a backseat and doing, putting talent together as opposed to doing the directing himself.
That's the thing. And I'm not saying the man has peaked.
Mhm.
You look at his career and what he's done. The main things I know: Felicity, Alias, the Mission Impossible movies he directed, obviously the Star Wars stuff that he did and the Star Trek stuff that he did.
Mhm.
That's great because he got a chance to put his stamp, his ideas on whatever he wanted to either create or work on.
Mhm.
J.J. Abrams to me is kind of the same as Michael Bay. You need to have him as an executive producer, a kind of, hey, what do you think of this? Like, not really, I don't want to say a guiding hand because that just, you don't want to follow that.
Mhm.
But, it's one of those things where he's there, like you said, to either bring talent together or he's there in case you need him and he gets his executive producer or whatever credit you need to, that's kind of like the whole Marvel model now of showrunner
Right.
becoming head writer thing.
And another, it seems like it's only DC news this week, but another thing is it looks like the Batgirl movie is moving forward. They've got the directors who they directed. I hope I pronounced this correctly. Adil El Arbi and Bilal Fallah, who directed Bad Boys for Life, which I haven't seen, but and then
that could be good.
But what I'm more interested in is it's written by Christina Hodson. She wrote the Birds of Prey movie, and she wrote the upcoming Flash movie. So I mean, I enjoyed Birds of Prey for what it was, even though I don't think it should have been called Birds of Prey, but it was a fun movie nonetheless. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where they go with this.
Yeah, I did see, actually, Bad Boys for Life was the final film I saw in theaters. And I used to be a huge theater buff from the time I could go to theaters on my own when I was 14, 15 years old, up until about 2 or 3 years ago. Always loved seeing, like, regardless of how bad the movies may be, I'm a Transformers fan. I've seen at least the first 4 in theaters. Fast and the Furious, same thing. And I know that kind of ties into the late great man that was your co-host, Mr. Derek Ferguson. I've seen all of those with the exception of Tokyo Drift in theaters. So I used to be a big theater guy. I always used to go by myself. I would always pick like the earliest morning time I could go because I'm like, I don't want anyone in here. And this is before COVID, obviously. This is, the last 30, 20 years of my life. It's like, I don't want anybody around me, no kids, no teenagers, no nothing. I just want me and the giant screen. And now I'm more like, I can wait for it to hit media release.
And the other thing that came out is, again, all just like all DC stuff this week. But did you ever play the Injustice video game?
No, but I've seen people play it.
Okay, so they also did a comic book based off it, which was actually pretty good by Tom Taylor. But it looks like that it's getting an animated movie. The Blu-ray and digital special features of Part 2 of Batman: The Long Halloween is going to include a sneak peek at the Injustice animated movie, but that's really all we have on it. The special features are also going to include DC Showcase Blue Beetle, which is going to star, obviously, Blue Beetle, as well as Captain Atom, The Question, and Nightshade as they battle Dr. Spectro. And then some movie flashbacks of The Dark Knight Returns, Hush, and Batman the Animated Series from the Two-Face episodes.
Very cool.
But yeah, the Injustice, it's a perfect thing to do for an animated movie because I like it when the animated movies do these adaptations of these comic stories that you'll never that shouldn't be like the tentpole franchise anyway. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that turns out.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So that's the end of the news for this week. So that means it's time to move into the movie. So we're talking the Batman Superman movie, World's Finest, which was the Batman's introduction into the kids WB, because Batman the Animated Series started out on Fox.
Yep.
And while it was on Fox, they had a lot of issues dealing with like the Fox censors and all sorts of things like that. Like I remember one example, Bruce Timm and Paul Dini said in an interview, was they had always wanted to do Firefly, but Fox would not let them use Firefly for whatever reason. Like the censors just said no. I don't know why, but and then when they had done Superman on Kids WB, and so then they were able to move Batman over and have him join Superman. So they had done an hour-long block, which was, you know, the Batman Superman adventures, and like one episode of Batman, one episode of Superman. And I think Superman had already done one season on the Kids WB by this point, and this was a 3-part episode originally aired. It was part of Superman season 2, and it featured Batman in his new Kids WB redesign, and also the Joker and Harley Quinn, but all the same voice actors. So it still had Kevin Conroy as Batman and Mark Hamill as the Joker.
And I wanted to, because number one, I listened to, let's see, the tribute you did to Derek.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to the episode with you and Tom DJ. And I wanted to listen to the new format that you have kind of going forward to make sure I was on the same page and to make sure things. So I listened to yours, and is it Adam?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay. I listened to that episode and I'm like, okay, I kind of get the gist of where they're going with this. This is interesting. This is good. We go from the bad Justice League, no matter what cut you're watching, to the good one. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so I know you came to the DCAU later in life. Me, I was watching this stuff as it was airing, like, because Batman Returns came out in '92, and I was like at the perfect age for that. I was like 8 or 9 years old at the time, and so I was Batman everything at that point, and Batman the Animated Series came out right after that. Like, I think it was Batman Returns came out the summer, and then I think the animated series came out in the following fall. And
October 5th, 1992.
Yeah, so it was just like that and X-Men like defined my elementary school life, plus Power Rangers too, but mostly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I just kind of fell off in the middle, like when I went 15, 16, 17. But I'm right there with you. And then the interesting story for me is that even though I fell off of it for a while, I came back in 99 just after I graduated high school. That's a long story. I was held back a year because of health and whatever. So I had seen Batman Beyond, and I'm like, wait a minute, what is this? Why is Batman old? What's going? I was so shocked because I hadn't seen Superman. I hadn't really finished Batman the Animated Series at that time. Then from that point forward to now, from 1999 to now, it's like, oh, this is what they're doing. I watched Justice League as it aired, when you could actually catch an airing of it, because Cartoon Network doesn't like to air anything unless it's Adventures of Gumball or Adventure Time or Rick and whatever. So I had kind of been up with it, but I wasn't I really had to catch up with it. And I was like, oh, interesting. And I never saw this as it aired, but I knew about it. And once the DVDs hit, once the Superman animated series, the original standard DVDs, because now it's in high def on HBO Max, or whatever you want to call it, I was like, oh, interesting. And then I saw news of, this was a while ago, obviously, oh, we're going to do a straight to DVD release, and we're going to compile the whole thing into one thing. And I'm like, ooh, that could be interesting. And that's the version that I like watching. It's not that I have anything against the individual episodes. I love the opening and closing credits of the animated series. However, I just feel that the movie, because it's so easy to see where they cut it for the episodes, putting it together for the movie was so seamless, and it's like, oh, I know where part 1 and part 2 break. I would have to go back through it again to be able to sit there and tell you where part 2 and part 3 break, because I don't remember.
Yeah, it's I watched it because it's on HBO Max just as part of the individual episode format, and but because it's got the autoplay next, it's like there's no real break in the action. So it's really well put together. It flows very well from one episode to the next, and you can see it was really written as like one long movie, and then they just found good spots to divide it up. Now, some of the things about this. Now, it's interesting for me because I love the animated Batman. That's like the distillation of who Batman is. It's like the perfect distillation of who Batman is. Less so on the animated Superman, the DCAU Superman, because this Superman takes a lot of cues from John Byrne's reboot, which I did not like. I don't like the idea of Clark Kent and Superman having almost no differentiation in their personalities. I didn't like that Superman's much more depowered and all that kind of stuff. Like those are things that I don't like about it. And I always felt that the John Byrne Superman, right, his Clark Kent was a football star, and now he's like an ace reporter, and he's got like his life is too perfect, I think. And I know a lot of people say that they found him more relatable, but I actually found him less relatable because, he's Superman and he's also Clark Kent and he's a football star and all this great stuff. And there's that lack of like the tragedy aspect, like with Superman the movie, which is one of my favorite scenes when Jonathan Kent dies, or or just like in some of the incarnations where he's like this wallflower type who he's got to keep, he's got to put on this mask in order to kind of, so people don't really know who he is. So that whole thing about having to wear these different masks and everything, and the things he's had to go through, and just like having those lessons in humility, I felt that the John Byrne Superman lacked a lot of that stuff.
Okay, I'll be perfectly honest with you. 1996, I was not reading comics at all. I remember from 92 to 99, I read maybe 4 comics, and those 4 comics were because of watching Spider-Man the animated series over on Fox. So I knew nothing of Byrne's run. So going into this, it was
same here. I was the same way because I didn't start reading comics until probably about the late 90s, and it wasn't until a few years after that I'd actually started getting into Superman really big. But so I'm with you there. Like I wasn't reading comics at the time, but looking back on it now, those are the problems I see with this Superman.
Yeah. I think what they did with Superman was probably better than, even though they were taking cues from Byrne and they were, homaging certain things. Some of the stories in Superman the animated series are so well done.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This
aside, I mean, this to me, like, I can sit here and literally, so when I watched this as of this recording the night before we recorded. I'm one of those people that I'm an audiophile. If I'm doing something for a podcast, whether it's my own stuff or somebody else's stuff, I will sit there and record the audio for the entire thing, and then I will cut through and find my favorite lines or what I think. I basically have 33 clips plus the full audio of this entire thing now. And it's like, I can sit there and go through and say what they're saying as I know this thing so well. It's like, are you sure you don't want to see this, mister? You'll plots. It's not exactly what she says, but she does say you'll plots. So it's like this and Transformers the movie, I have committed to memory. Like snap out of it, Kent. That whole thing. And Superman in this surprises me. It doesn't really surprise me, but it surprises me on this viewing. Because, you go through the entirety of the DCAU past this, and you get to Destroyer at the end of Justice League, and he's like, but you can take it, can't you, big man? No, Darkseid. What we have here is a chance for me to just let loose. In this movie, you see how the restraint hurts him a little, because like in the very one of the very last scenes of World's Finest, when he's fighting the giant robots, Mercy is tied to one of them. Well, obviously Superman's not going to hit a woman. He's not going, at least 30, 40, I don't know what he does now, but so the restraint of them, the animator animating his arm being held back from throwing that, I was like, oh, that is so good to just show how hard it is and how difficult it is for him to just not go full force all the time.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I thought that was a really good touch they did. And that's one of the things that I do have a criticism about, is that the Superman in, not so much in this episode, but in some of and especially when you get to some of the Justice League stuff, is this Superman, it's less of the concern with the saving people aspect of it, right? This is more of the punchy Superman. But I really liked that they threw that in. Like, he's about to go all out on this robot, and then then Mercy swings into view and he can't hit it. Yeah,
exactly. And the only reason why they made him a wimp in Justice League Season 1 is because they thought they needed to depower him.
Right, which I think is also why they took cues from Byrne's run with the Superman the Animated Series and depowered him as well as this, because like there are things when he like when the exploding gumballs start coming out and he's like flinching, stuff like that. And so that's the kind of stuff, like, that's not my Superman. But that aside, like you said, the stories in the animated series, all that aside, are really good. And one of the things they did take from Byrne's run, which was there are only two things I like from Byrne's run. One was that he wasn't Superboy. I always thought that was always kind of a weird thing. The whole idea of Clark Kent and Superman both come from Smallville, and they both moved to Metropolis at the same time. It always felt very weird to me. That kind of stretched the suspension of disbelief a little too much. It was one of those problems I had with Smallville, when I'm like, well, by the time he becomes Superman, everybody in the world knows who he is. So
pretty much.
Secret identity doesn't really work then.
No. Then again, Welling didn't want to wear the tights because he was so afraid of the curse. But whatever.
It was a weird thing too. Even when he came back in Crisis, he didn't want to put on a suit. So,
and you know what? Honestly, in Crisis, I get it, because in Crisis it seems like it's so far ahead of where Smallville. Like, okay, at the end of Smallville, and again, as we're recording this, I think a few days ago or whatever, it's been like 10 years since the finale of Smallville or something. He put on the shirt, at least. I don't know what else he had on underneath, but in that closing scene when the Williams,
that was actually CGI'd onto him.
Oh, okay, of course it was, because heaven forbid. But still, regardless of how it was done, regardless of what Welling felt about it, us as Superman fans watching that final scene and hearing that music, hearing the Williams music and seeing the shirt rip and whatever, and you flash forward to Crisis in the CW stuff, to me it's like a decade or two has passed. He's like, oh, Lex, the president? Like, really? What's he doing? So I'm okay with him in Crisis not.
Yeah, well, when we did our Crisis episode, Derek and I talked about that scene, and one of the things I liked about that cameo is that I felt like it was a better ending to Smallville than the actual series finale was.
Absolutely. The only good thing about the series finale for Smallville was using the Williams score at the very, very end.
Well, I like seeing Michael Rosenbaum back as well.
True.
That was good too. But like the whole giving him amnesia thing was just weird. But anyway, that's another story. But going back to this movie, when they redesigned the characters for when Batman came over to the Kids WB, it's really weird because there are some redesigns that are really awesome. Like, I love the new look they have for Batman with getting rid of all the blue and just going with the silhouette and the pouch belt. That's like the perfect Batman design. So I love that. But then you look at, and also what they did with Bruce Wayne, because I don't know why they put him in that ugly brown tan suit in the animated series.
The frumpy brown coat and yellow shirt.
It was ugly. Like every time I have to look away when I've been rewatching it in like batches on HBO. Now it's on HBO Max, and whenever he comes on as Bruce Wayne in that suit, I got to look away because it's just so ugly.
The one time that I can forgive it is the episode The Forgotten, when he ends up with amnesia and he ends up being in the camp with the dude, and the music swells, and this is the episode where Alfred has to pilot the bat. Listen to me, you stupid, whatever Alfred says to the Batwing. That's the only time I can forgive the frumpy brown suit with yellow shirt. And I guess at the time they were trying to, like, the way I've always seen it is Bruce Wayne is the mask, Batman is the man.
Right.
When it comes to the DC animated universe, when it comes to Bruce Timm and James Tucker and Radomski and all them. So you don't want to necessarily show off that Batman has a six-pack. You don't want to necessarily show off that he's got a beer gut like Bullock or anything, but at least it hid enough of stuff so I can kind of forgive it. But I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, the thing about me, like, I've always viewed part of the Bruce Wayne mask is the fact that he's this playboy type, and and I think with that you got to have like a sense of style, and like he's got no style, and so that's why I really like what they did here, because now, you know, he's got his hair neatly combed, he's wearing the black power suit with the red tie, and it much more suits Bruce Wayne than it does than the frumpy look did.
Absolutely. And this movie is set up perfectly, and this is how all team-up movies should be. And I need to give credit to, I believe it's Michael David Sims and James Doe over at World's Finest Podcast over at earth-2.net. They had said this years ago when they were doing the DCAU reviews that they did. This is the way the most crossover movies should start. You start with the villains. You have the villains either getting along or not getting along. And then you have the heroes, where the heroes are reluctant. They're unsure of each other. They don't know. I mean, Lois says it perfectly. Like, you know, what, that nut from Gotham City, you know? I mean, it's just one of those, you know, he's not like your Batman. But it's one of those things where, and then they get to a point where they're like, oh, hey, maybe we're on the same side. And right at that point, when Clark goes into investigative mode and he's revealing his ideas of why they can't find the Joker and what Lex is doing, and Bruce is like, well, maybe I should just ask him. And that is one of the best scenes in this is finally seeing Lex Luthor thrown off his rocker by Batman.
Yeah, I love that. And that was something that stood out to me as well. The fact that, you know, Lex Luthor is not scared of Superman at all, but Batman scares the crap out of him because he doesn't know what Batman will do. Going back to the design too, another thing I wanted to mention is like I said, like some of the designs are really good, like the Batman, the Bruce Wayne designs, those, and a lot of the other characters, they got these updated designs as well. But one of them that I did not like was the Joker. Like, I don't know, like getting rid of the red lips and and the black eyes thing, just it doesn't really work for the Joker for me. That was one thing that I never liked watching those episodes of the Joker because of that. And I liked when he did appear again in Justice League, they did like a mix of those two styles again.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I know they needed to redesign him, and I understand why they got rid of the red lips, because again, which is weird that they did, because you're going from Fox, who at the time, like, as long as nobody shoots anybody, you know, basically G.I. Joe, every shot misses. They're shooting at people, but you don't actually see people getting shot. And going from that to Kids WB, which Kids WB just basically let them do anything. I mean, look at Growing Pains, the new Batman and Superman Adventure episode, Growing Pains. This is the one with Tim Drake and Clayface, and it's this little girl named Annie who Tim kind of has a crush on. Well, she's just a piece of Clayface. But it's like, ooh, Clayface. Like, I don't know how they're going to get away with this. But again, kids WB, they can get away with it.
Yeah.
And in this, the redesigns, Joker redesign it's okay. I think it works when he's being menacing.
Mm-hmm.
When he's being funny, it doesn't necessarily work. But when he's like the scene where Lex is like, oh, he's just some mere mortal in a Halloween costume, and Joker turns to him and looks at him like, there's nothing mere about that. Like, when he's doing all of that, I think it works when he's being the sinister part of the Hamill Joker. When he's trying to be the Jekyll the Clown comedy version of him, it doesn't really work.
Yeah. And that's why I really like what they did with him when he came on Justice League, because he's got the more expressive eyes back. He's got the red lips back. But they're using those darker tones too. So it's a really good look for the Joker. I thought they did there.
Absolutely.
Another thing I mentioned is going back to what you said about the team up aspect too, is I think one of the best things about this is the whole dynamic between Bruce and Clark. And I love how right at the start they explain how they each know each other's secret identity, because it kind of happens in Batman v Superman, but we never find out how they know who each other is. But here, like, we see, like, Superman, he uses X-ray vision right on Batman's mask.
You peaked.
Yeah, and then and in true Batman form, he slips a tracker on him and follows him back. Like, I love that was the ending of the first part, and that's such a perfect such a perfect ending where he uses his vision to look across the city and he sees Batman there with binoculars and just gives him the thumbs up.
Okay, so there has been long standing with me, my friends, with everybody I know. Like, what is he actually like? I know he's trying to salute him. Like, what he's trying to say, hey, by the way, haha, I know who you are now. And that's why at the end of that episode, the end of that part of the film, Superman crushes the thing and he's like, touche. Well, I've taken screenshots of Batman in that moment so many times over the years. I think it's just two fingers on his head. It's not even a thumbs up. It's just two fingers that he just kind of pushes off of his forehead. And I'm like, okay, so he's kind of giving him the middle finger here.
Really? Because I don't know. Maybe there's a different version in the movie, because
there isn't.
Okay,
I've screen capped it from both things, and it just looks like he has his index and middle finger to his head as some sort of salute, like little mini salute thing.
I thought it was just like down here by his side. That's why I always thought it was a thumbs up.
I don't think so, but anyway. Yeah, I'm not sure.
But I always took it as a thumbs up, and just like a little, it's just whatever it is, it's just like a little gesture, like you got me, I got you back. And it's just that little back and forth thing. And I thought, and it was also his way of communicating that, look, there are things I can do that you don't even know about.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I do like, and I like that they didn't go too much into the rivalry route, right? There's this mutual respect they both have for each other, even if they don't agree with each other's methods.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, they go a little bit in. I think the closest thing we have to the rivalry is where, Batman's, hey, Binko, it's been a long time. That's enough. And then Batman just flips him.
Yeah.
Like, oh, crap. Okay, then. Like, I think that's the closest this needed to be with the rivalry. The rivalry does not need to expand upon the entire film, because you need to have that point of where they come together and realize they're working to the same end goal.
Yeah, they had a really good job. And Batman's the one who, he starts it and he ends it. Like, I did kind of like that, where he, like, Superman's not really, right, he's not antagonizing him, really. He's just saying, hey, look, you're going too far. And then Batman's the one who gets antagonistic, flips him over. And then he pulls out the piece of kryptonite. And
it doesn't take much, does it?
Right, yeah. And he holds Superman at bay, but then he tosses it into the water, and he says, like, just thought you'd know. And then he goes, and I thought that was it was it was like his way of saying that, like, look, this is what's happening. I'm here. I'm actually here to help, even though I may be an asshole sometimes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Another thing I like is this. I mean, the casting in this is amazing, especially on the Batman side, right? Kevin Conroy, obviously, Mark Hamill, obviously, but also, Clancy Brown is Lex Luthor. He's just he's probably it's weird. Like, I go back and forth between him and Rosenbaum, because Rosenbaum, I liked his portrayal, but the stories weren't always he wasn't given as good material to work with as Brown was.
Yeah. No, the casting here is amazing. It really, really is. This is the first time you have Kevin Conroy and Tim Daly together as Batman and Superman. You have Dana Delaney is by far the single greatest voice of Lois Lane ever.
Yeah.
And it's so funny at some point. I don't know when I saw this, but look up a movie. It's called, not now, but later. It's called Exit to Eden. And she stars in that. And I'm like, oh my God, Lois is hedonistic. Yikes.
Oh, wow.
It's a really fun, interesting, silly movie.
And also, I think this is actually one of the few times, because Tim Daly didn't reprise the Superman role in the Justice League shows.
No, it went to George Newbern.
George Newbern, yeah.
Yeah. And the funny thing about that is that before he was the voice of Superman, there was only one role I knew him from. He was one of the kids, not the kids, but he was the boyfriend of Elizabeth Shue in Adventures in Babysitting.
Oh, okay. And I'm checking out a few other ones, because I know they did those 2 Superman Batman animated movies based on the comic book. And Tim Daly came back as Superman in, I think he came back in both of them, just double checking. He came back as Superman in both of those.
We also had a reunion of the 4 of them. It was Conroy, Delaney, Daly, and Brown in the Batman Superman story, which was season 5, episode something of The Batman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was always it. Like, I remember actually watching that on Cartoon Network when it aired. I'm like, Kevin Conroy, Dana Delaney, and the fact that this film, this 3-episode arc, shows that it's not Clark and Lois, it's Bruce and Lois. Like, oh, it's that serious. You don't know what you're getting into, lady.
In that, because I've only seen a few episodes of the Batman. I haven't seen that one,
season 5 of is it The Batman, or I think it is season 5 of The Batman was the team up season. So it was after their big epic that they did in season 3 and season 4, because by season 3, season 4 of that show, they added in Robin and Batgirl and did other things, and season 4 was their big arc thing. By season 5, they were doing team up episodes.
Right. Yeah. Kevin Conroy was that? Who did he play? I'm just looking at the cast list. I don't see.
I thought he was. I could have sworn.
No, it's Newbern is in it. He's playing Superman.
That's right. It's just the Superman cast that returns. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll have to check that out then, because seeing those 3 come back then.
Yeah. I got that confused with Batman of Zur-En-Arrh from Brave and the Bold. That's where Conroy comes back.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So this movie, this 3-part thing, it's so fun, and it's got everything for every Bat or Superman fan that you could really want, really. And sadly, the sad thing is most of the voice cast isn't with us anymore. Most of the, like, Commissioner Gordon, Bob Hastings, Robert Costanzo, Detective Harvey Bullock, I think both of them have passed.
Oh,
since
really?
This.
Oh, okay.
I think so. Yes, I'm pretty sure Hastings died, because I remember seeing that news years ago. Yeah. So, but it's one of those things where the cast is just so well done.
Mm-hmm. Another thing I really like, there are two scenes that really jumped out to me this last time. One of them is when Lex and Joker are having the meeting, and in the background you've got Harley Quinn and Mercy just going at it.
I love that scene.
Mm-hmm.
That scene is by far the best sidekick scene in anything, because, and it's the way it's done, because you have Joker and Lex talking, you have the music, and then, because I listened to it as I was watching it, and I listened to it after with just listening to the audio without looking at the visual. And I could hear each of them in stereo through my headphones, and I'm like, hey, they're on the other side of the room, or that is that, and what they did in Batman Beyond's episode The Shriek, the sound design episode, where they won the award for that. That is some of the best sound design in animation that has ever happened.
And another thing that I like too is the unpredictability of the Joker in this, right? The way he's and it's just like Batman says to Superman when Joker throws the marble, is he's like, you always got to expect the unexpected. And this also has that recurring motif where like the Joker always seems to die in this show, but he always comes back.
Yeah. And you think about it, Joker and Batman has one of the most sinister lines in this entire thing at the very end, like you're talking about with is he dead, is he not dead? And Batman saves Harley, and she's like, put in. Well, at this point he probably is.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn, Batman, that's cutting deep, man.
Yeah, that jumped out to me. It's like, oh, okay, that's it's pretty dark there. Pretty dark for a kid's show too.
Yep. And again, I don't even think, even though we were kids at the time or teenagers or whatever you want to say, these creators were not making a show for kids. They were making a show for, it's the same thing with all the 80s cartoons. G.I. Joe, that's not for Transformers. It's not, I mean, we were kids then. We watched it, fine. The Looney Tunes stuff, none of the Looney Tunes stuff, Chuck Jones was not making those cartoons for kids. He was making them for himself. And that's, the same thing like with podcasting, with whatever, with writing. You do it for yourself. You hope it gets, noticed and praised and all of that. But like that's the thing. Back then, you didn't, I've heard Bruce Timm in interviews on the DVD sets and everything else where he's like, oh, well, this influenced me, so I wanted to put this into this thing that I'm working on, and here's hoping people will enjoy it, will get the reference or get what I'm trying to go for here, and if we enjoy it, we enjoy it. But he never actively targeted, like, everybody back then was like, oh, you have an ages 5 to 9 demographic, an ages 10 to 13 demographic. Having the demographics is great. Having people cater, try to write stories for those demographics, that's just dumb, because you need to write a story for yourself and figure it out. And if there are things that standards, boards, and practices won't let you do, that's fine. You find a workaround with it, and you can still get, you only can make so many compromises, but you still make some to the point of, oh, well, I can live with it, the story being told this way, as long as the main part of the story gets told. Oh, if we can't shoot anybody in Batman the Animated Series, fine. It's not about that. As long as, Mr. Freeze gets more than the weekly bank robbery.
Well, they had, it was a mix. There were some that were definitely like that. But then there's some other TV shows that were much more written for, I think it was when the 90s really started to see a shift, because that's when you had the much more mature storytelling in like Batman or X-Men. But I think about some of the other stuff that I grew up with in the late 80s, like the original Ninja Turtles cartoon, which is looking back on that is cheesy as hell, and it's just it's very much written for a younger audience. Or what's the other one? I recently just rewatched a few episodes of Brave Star, which I hadn't watched in years, but it was also the same kind of thing. Like you could see some elements in there, like there's some, you could tell they got some, but mostly it's got a tone that's much more directed towards kids. So you had a mix of things, I think, and now you do too. Like it's still that way. And that's fine. Like I think there's nothing wrong with doing these shows that are just for kids as well. Like the Brave, I remember one of Derek's thing was he loved the Batman, the Brave and the Bold thing. And I've watched a few episodes of that, and it's really hard for me to get into just because it's so much of that. Like I'm waiting for my daughter to get older so that she can enjoy it. And then maybe I might be able to get into it with her.
There are three or four episodes of Brave and the Bold that I absolutely love. Like I mentioned earlier, Batman of Zurinar, where they go to the alternate time, the alternate planet or alternate timeline or whatever, where, you know, Kevin Conroy voices this multicolored Batman character.
Oh, the Zurinar?
Yeah. And then I love the Batmite episodes because it's friggin' Pee Wee Herman as Batmite. It's amazing. But yeah, no, World's Finest. It hits everything that you wanted to hit with these two characters, even with the villains. Lex is like, what is this going to cost me? And that's his bottom line. That's what always in the DCAU, that's always Clancy Brown, Lex Luthor's bottom line. Right. What is it going to cost me? Whereas Joker's like, oh no, it's not going to cost you this. It's going to cost you even more because I need to go one step further, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then there's Harley, and Harley, as much as she has been thrown into the spotlight over the last 20 years, seeing her in this time, she really shines in the moments that she is given in this, because between boingy coming in with the pogo stick, or doing whatever else, at the end, like, I want a doctor, I want a lawyer, I want a cheese sandwich. Like, oh, Harley.
Yeah, and I like I did think it was kind of interesting that Lois finds out that Batman is really Bruce Wayne the first time she encounters him, but she goes through the whole series and Justice League never finding out that Clark Kent is Superman. I always thought that was kind of funny.
And I like what they did with it, though, because it's so subtle. Because she's in danger. Batman's in there trying to rescue her, trying to save her, and I'm going to call it a printing press, but it wasn't a printing press. It looked like a printing press, but his cape gets caught in some of the machinery and his mask gets pulled off. And she's like, Bruce Wayne, you're Batman. When were you going to tell me? The honeymoon? And he was never going to tell her. Yeah. No matter how far, if there was an alternate version of this thing and they let that relationship go, he would have never, ever told her. I don't want to say that they would have, and I don't think they would have turned her into an Aunt Harriet, but she would have never, ever known, kind of thing. I like that she did, because of the scenes that happen afterwards, because of, she has sympathy for him, and she has this thing of, I'm a reporter. I'm sitting on the greatest story in the world, Batman Unmasked, and there's not a blessed thing I can do about it. And then later, when she's helping him heal, she's like, I'll be back. I'm going to go get some burning, stinging iodine. And I'm like, oh, I love you, Lois Lane.
There's also that great moment when Superman comes in and Batman says, it's ironic. She likes Bruce Wayne and she likes Superman, but it's the other two guys she's not too crazy about. And Superman says, well, it's too bad we can't just mix and match.
Mix and match. Yep. It's
well, this is one of the things I really like about Kevin Conroy's Batman, because like he's a dark Batman. He's not the Adam West Batman, but he's not grimdark Batman. Right. He's still got this personality. He's still got these moments of levity. And I really like that they have that side of his personality here.
Yeah, and it's not. It's throughout the entire. Yes, it isn't here, and it is in parts of the animated series once it became the New Adventures. But it's throughout the rest of the DCAU. If you look at any, like, I swear to God, I have more pictures on my Facebook that I've uploaded over the years of Batman smiling. Like, there's so many times that he smiles that you don't notice it until you see it, and it's like, hey. And you're right, it's not Dark Knight Returns, it's not Frank Miller, it's not Tim Burton, even though that Batman wasn't that dark, to be honest. I mean, Michael Keaton's Batman wasn't that dark. And
no, he had we talked about that. He had moments of levity as well.
Yeah.
But especially the Conroy Batman, it's very much in the Neil Adams, Denny O'Neil vein of Batman.
Yeah.
And where he's got this wry humor, right? He's not just incessantly dark all the time.
Yeah. And one of the best parts is in Justice League in Only a Dream, the Only a Dream two-parter. This is with Dr. Destiny. And he's singing Frere Jacques, he's humming Frere Jacques, and he's like, what's that song? What are you singing? Don't stop doing that. I can't read your thoughts. That's the idea, Johnny. It's to keep you out of my head. And because he's falling asleep as he's driving the Batmobile, stops into a coffee shop, basically cuts everybody in line, throws some cash, give me a triple. And I'm like, oh, that is so good. Because again, it's Conroy. And I had never, ever, up until Batman the Animated Series, I didn't know who Kevin Conroy was. Had no clue. That was my introduction. And I'm like, yeah, that's Batman. Because again, like you were mentioning earlier, we were at a time where 89 had happened, Batman Returns had happened, and they wanted to go off of that and create something, and they did. They created Batman the Animated Series, Superman, Justice League, Batman Beyond, all that stuff. And it's outside of Adam West, which Adam West is a whole other 66 Batman is a whole other thing.
Right. But
outside of that universe has got the staying power. I don't think there are any other Batman universes on television, on film, that have really stuck to people as much. Like, can one of the animated movies, the direct DVD animated movies, reach, like, I'm not going to say Hush, because I actually have never read Hush. I have no interest, but whatever.
It was an okay story.
I have no opinion because I've never, whatever. But it's one of those things where, Justice League Doom. I'll bring that up because that, again, is Conroy.
Yeah.
That may have left people feeling things about Batman and about Conroy or whatever, but is that something that is going to last you 25, 30, 40, 50? The DCAU was a thing of beauty, is a thing of beauty, and it is a thing that is going to outlast all of people in the future. They always want to say, 2015, we should have flying cars by now. Well, we're at 2021. We still don't have flying cars. By 2039, when Batman Beyond is supposed to start, I guarantee you, if any of us are still here, hopefully we are, hopefully nothing happens. But you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, if I croak tomorrow, I know that the universe that I grew up with for DC, for animation, can be found 30, 40, 50 years in the future at some point. Like, they'll probably dust off some old library. Oh, this old DVD format. What is this kind of thing? You know what I mean?
Well, I think it's hard to say, really, because I do notice some things. Like, I see, I remember Jon Stewart had this when he was doing The Daily Show, when he had George Lucas on, and he was talking to George Lucas about the prequels versus the original trilogy. And he said, my son tells me that The Phantom Menace is his favorite Star Wars movie. And I always tell him, no, it's not. And it's that thing where it's like, it depends on the generation that's coming up now, 20, 30 years, they might be looking at, Cape Crusader and, My Adventures with Superman as their DC universe. So, I think
Maybe
it will,
they will.
it'll be important, but I think it's too premature to say that other stuff will or won't be. I like taking a wait and see attitude with that stuff.
And I do tentatively agree with you. What I'm saying though is, as a universe of animated property, this is the only full-on cohesive, connective one that we have. Yes, certain ones of the DC animated films connect to each other and they created a universe within that, but these were whole cartoon series on their own.
It wasn't as expansive as that was.
Right. Yeah. That's basically what I'm saying is the expanse of the DCAU is far reaching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other things you want to touch on with this movie?
Well, I mean, Superman, like you said, like Batman said, expect the unexpected. And I think Joker is, people want to say the Joker is not as smart as he used to be or something like that. He's pretty smart in this because Superman shows up with the lead suit. Obviously. And he's like, he shows the kryptonite to him and he's like, whatever. Joker walks away. Superman lowers his guard because he's going to get Lois. And Joker turns like, silly me, I forgot the acid. And he shoots him with the acid and throws the kryptonite at him. And it's just like, you don't underestimate the Joker.
Right.
The Joker is the ultimate version of Big Brother. Expect the unexpected, like Batman said. And it's so funny and interesting to see this movie now versus when the multiple other times I've seen it, because I haven't watched these and I haven't watched this in a long time, and I just snap right back into it. Yeah. So good.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's not a whole lot more to say about it. It's just, I don't know anybody who doesn't like this movie.
I don't know how you can't like it. It's not about whether people should or shouldn't like it. I don't know how someone can't, even if it's just someone who knows nothing about it, knows nothing about just my mom, heaven, rest her soul, all that. My mom's been gone 6 years. If I showed this to her and she only knew Christopher Reeve and Adam West, she could probably come away with this laughing in a few of the moments or having some reaction to some of the moments. And it's not about showing people whether they have 30, 40, 50, 75-year history with these characters. It's getting them to see how awesome these characters actually are.
Right.
I don't know of anybody that I interact with that actually actively dislikes this, because there really is nothing to dislike.
Well, I know if I showed it to my mom, she would not like it. Just based on the fact that it's animated and it's superheroes, I know she would not she would not even give it a chance. But other than that, it's a perfect representation of what the relationship between these two characters should be, and it also does a good job of showing the different types of threats that both Batman and Superman are up against.
Yeah.
And because you see, you've got Lex Luthor who's a threat. Yeah. But he's not as even he's terrified by what how far the Joker's willing to go.
Yeah.
And I like that. And it reminds me of going back to something in the comic books. Back in I think it was the mid '90s, Mark Waid did this limited series called Underworld Unleashed, where all these villains made deals with can't remember the name of it. It was, Necron, I think it was one of the satanic characters, and they're showing like and Necron's brought out all these villains and it's all narrated from the Trickster's point of view. He's the narrator of the story. And he's got this round table of all these big name villains who have made deals with Necron. Like there's Lex Luthor, and then one of them is the Joker. And then the Trickster's narration says, "Oh, good job. Bring the guy that everybody hates to be in a room with." He's like, when villains get together and they want to scare each other, they tell Joker stories.
Yeah.
And I think they do a good job of capturing that in this, and also in the Justice League episode when Joker appears too, because he shows up with the Injustice gang and nobody wants to work with him. Nope.
Yeah, that's another one of the images I have captured on Facebook. Shows up every couple of years or so. Like it's the Joker with the popcorn and Batman is tied up next to him. He's like, and I'm like, movies with superheroes. Here you go, folks. I actually had a chance. Oh man, it's been next year will mark a decade since I did this. 2012, I had a chance to interview Kevin Conroy, and that was by far one of the single greatest interviews I have ever done. And in that interview, he tells a September 11th story that is just so good. I'll have you direct your listeners to it if they'd like to, because I don't know if I can truly capture what he said, but basically he was going down to help and he was asking where he could help, and he ended up helping in this kitchen. And he was just with some other guy, and he's like, what do you do? And and the guy asked him back, what do you do? I'm a voice actor. And the guy kind of, the way Kevin the guy kind of smiles at him. He's like, yeah, but is there I hear something in your voice. Is there a specific character? Oh yeah, I'm the character of, I voiced the character of Batman. And the guy goes out to the cafeteria, the room that they're serving food to. Hey guys, Batman is cooking your dinner. Somebody in the back says, bullshit, make him prove it. I am vengeance. I am the night. I am, and all. It's much better if your listeners go to, I'll send you the link to that and you hear him say the story, because it's much better than me trying to imitate it. But it was like, I've heard a lot of September 11th stories. That by far was one of the coolest stories, because again, we at a time where America needed to come together, and it didn't matter who you were, even though the guy was like, oh yeah, but don't you voice a specific character? Yeah, it really didn't matter, because everybody needs to lend a hand when they can. Yeah. Kind of thing. Oh, that was so fun.
But
I gotta catch up with him.
It's kind of funny when you think about Conroy, because I've been re-listening to old episodes to prepare compilation stuff of Derek and some of the great things he said in the show over the years. And I was just re-listening to the Crisis episode, and he talked, and in that we were talking about Kevin Conroy when he appeared on as Batman, and how jarring it was to hear that voice coming out of that face, because you do not associate them together.
But I had a feeling you were going to bring this up, because again, it's all things Kevin Conroy here inside Superhero Cinephiles. I remember him doing an interview about it and saying something like, I'm very happy I finally got to play him on screen. It's my face, it's my voice, it's Bruce Wayne, but it's not really the Bruce Wayne and But again, it's not the Bruce Wayne and Batman he thought they were going to have him play at the same. I know everybody was like, "Oh my God, Batman is the Kingdom Come version or whatever." He's the evil Batman, and I'm like, I don't. It could be, sparkly Batman with vampire teeth. I don't care. It's Kevin Conroy in the role finally, after how many years that he has portrayed it as a voice actor. That is amazing. Yeah. Did I ever expect Crisis? Was it? Yeah.
Crisis on Infinite Earths. Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking of Earth X, but anyway, did I ever expect Kevin Conroy to suit up in a Batman suit and do flips and dips and all? No.
Yeah.
As long as he shows up and does the work and does the material, I'm fine. We have 85 episodes of Kevin Conroy's voice with the character doing all of the action.
Plus, going beyond that, you got the video games, you've got the
everything.
You've got the other movies, the other animated movies he's done. Yep. So yeah, there's lots of stuff out him where he's been doing the act. No, I like the fact that we got to see him just as Bruce Wayne. I did like the different versions of Batman they kind of mix in, because you get some of Kingdom Come in there, you get some of Dark Knight Returns, you get some of Batman v Superman even. So I thought that was a really interesting choice they did, which they also did with Brandon Routh's Superman, because they got a little bit of Injustice mixed in with him, plus even Superman 3. So I thought they did. It was really cool to see how they fit all those things together.
Yeah, it was so good, so good.
Okay, so that about does it for now. Mike, where'd you like people to find you?
I'm on social media. Twitter is at TFG1. So TFG, the number one Mike. I'm on Facebook. I think it's TFG2 Mike for my fan page. GeekCast Radio Network. GeekCastRadio.com is the website where all the podcasts are. I've been doing this a long time, folks, and things are interesting, I'll say, because podcasting has, in just the 13 years I've been doing, there have been so many different advancements with Zoom and Skype and all this other stuff and everything else. It's like, I can't keep up anymore. But my main show that I do on the regular, that I usually plan out pretty much a year in advance, is called The Pull Bag. I've been doing this for 8 of the 13 years that I've been podcasting. We've got over 400 episodes. We do comic reviews and discussions. Generally, how I like to do the comic reviews is I don't like to necessarily go page by page, but we kind of go through the story in that order, because I love using the Comixology guided view. Yeah. Because with the way my vision is, I kind of have to use that. I also have this thing on there called Origins, where now, it wasn't so much a couple of years ago, as of I think 2020, pretty much since last year, I have a 25 question format that I ask guests about how they got into or out of reading comics.
Oh, okay.
And I was hoping to have gotten Derek on there, but I never reached out at the time, because I didn't know what I had stuff going on. I'm sure he had stuff going on, and this was a couple of years ago. This was like end of 2019, when we were about to move from Illinois out here to Washington State.
Right.
So that man, he is so missed.
Yeah. It's surreal now when I'm going back and listening to these old episodes, just knowing that he's not around anymore. For people who've listened to the end of the last episode, like I got a clip of him with his sign off. So we end every episode now with his sign off, both on the video and on the audio feed.
That's very awesome.
So yeah. Well, Mike, thanks so much for coming on. It was nice to finally get you on after talking about it for over a year or so now.
Yep. Now got to get you on the Pull Bag to do your comic stuff. So
yeah, we'll have to find a time to do that.
Yes, we will.
Okay, well, thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching. SuperheroCinephiles.com is the website. Super Cinema Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And we've got the Superhero Cinephiles group on Facebook. Feel free to follow us on any one of those. Drop us some money through Patreon or PayPal or Buy Me a Coffee. All those links can be found on the SuperheroCinephiles.com website. And we'll be back soon with another guest and another movie. Don't know what yet. We're still working it out with them and trying to figure out what we're going to talk about, but we'll see what happens. Until then, I'm Perry Constantine, and as always, want to pay tribute to our, forever host emeritus, Derek Ferguson, who sadly passed away last month. Thanks so much for listening, and we will see you next time. You have been listening to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Super Cinema Pod. Join our Facebook group by searching for Superhero Cinephiles, where you can interact with us and other superhero fans. If you'd like to support the show, you can become a regular supporter at Patreon or make a one-time donation through PayPal, both of which can be found at our website, superherocinephiles.com. If you buy or rent any movies through the Amazon links at our site, it helps support the show. Please be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thank you for listening. And as always, good night, good evening. God bless.